Have you ever looked through a telescope and felt like something was looking back? When I was a kid, my mother told me that space was endless, that we could look into it forever and still never find the edge. But what she never said was that sometimes the edge looks back at you. They say Jupiter is just gas and storms. But what if that's not true? What if what we call storms are eyes? I used to laugh at stories like that. I used to believe the universe was quiet, empty. Now I know better. And if you've ever felt that chill when you look at the night sky, you might already know too. This is my story, the one I've tried to forget, the one that started the night I saw Jupiter blink. I used to believe the world made sense, that everything could be measured, explained, or mapped. That was before I looked into my mother's old telescope. I grew up in a small town in Montana where the nights were so clear that even the Milky Way looked like dust on glass. My mother loved astronomy. She said the stars were reminders that we were small, insignificant, but connected to something grand. One night, when I was about 8, she took me outside and aimed the telescope toward Jupiter. She smiled and told me to look. I remember leaning in my breath, fogging the eyepiece. At first, all I saw was light, soft white, trembling in the dark. Then, I saw it, that great swirling planet, painted in browns and reds, the giant storm like a bleeding eye, turning slowly. And for a reason I couldn't explain, I felt something staring back. It was the first time I was truly afraid of the sky. I pulled away from the telescope and told my mother I didn't like it. She laughed gently and said I was just tired. But I couldn't forget it. That sense that something vast and aware had noticed me and had not forgotten. Years passed. I grew up, went to college, and became a geologist, a profession that felt safer, grounded. The earth made sense. Pressure, erosion, heat, they were predictable. Rocks didn't stare back at you, but the nights were always hardest. Sometimes I'd wake up with that same feeling from childhood, like a gaze pressing down on me from above. When I turned 32, I found my mother's telescope packed away in her attic. It was March of 2013. I remember that, because that month, the news said Jupiter would be brighter than it had been in decades. I told myself it was nostalgia, that I just wanted to see what had scared me as a child. I cleaned the lens, set it up in my backyard, and waited for the sky to clear. I shouldn't have looked. The air was sharp that night, the kind that makes your breath visible. A few friends were over, other scientists, people like me, who needed logic to survive the loneliness of curiosity. We took turns looking through the telescope, laughing, pointing out constellations. Everything was calm. Then, without warning, a meteor streaked across the sky, burning bright, cutting right in front of Jupiter. And the moment it passed, I heard something. A sound that wasn't sound, more like a vibration behind my eyes. It was low, deep, and vast, like the hum of the planet itself. I leaned into the eyepiece again, and I saw them. Tiny red dots scattered across the face of Jupiter. Not storms, not reflections. They looked like eyes. Dozens of them. Each one seemed to move ever so slightly, adjusting, focusing. And I realized they were all pointed toward Earth. I stumbled back and laughed it off. But that night, long after my friends had gone, I kept hearing the hum, low, constant, like something still echoing inside me. The dreams began the next night. I saw swirling clouds, red, orange, and black, spinning faster than physics should allow. And through them, an enormous shape moved, something not made of matter but awareness. It whispered a single phrase, "I see you." I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. My phone was ringing. It was 3:09 a.m. No one was on the line. Just a faint static hum, the same frequency I'd heard through the telescope. In the morning, I checked the telescope again. There was a thin film on the glass, reddish, oily, like residue from a flame. I tried to clean it, but the stain wouldn't come off. That night, the skin on my fingers began to peel. A week later, I stopped going to work. I couldn't focus. I kept seeing the planet when I closed my eyes. Everywhere I looked, I saw circles, traffic lights, stove burners, even coffee stains, all spinning, all watching. One evening, while boiling soup, I forgot to turn off the stove. Smoke filled the room. And in the haze, I saw the swirling patterns of Jupiter's storms, alive, shifting, pulsing. Then came the voice. It wasn't outside. It was inside my head. "You opened the window," it said. "Now let us look back." I dropped the pot and ran. But even with my eyes closed, I could still see that red vortex. And somewhere within it, an eye, enormous, ancient, patient. I stayed in my mother's old house for a while, hoping the distance would help. The telescope still sat by the window where she'd left it years ago. I didn't dare look through it again. That night, I dreamed of her. She was sitting by the window, the curtains drawn, humming a lullaby. I asked her what she was looking at. "The storm," she said softly. "The one that never ends." When I woke, the window was open, the curtains fluttering. Outside, the stars looked like they were sinking, not twinkling, but drifting downward, as if gravity had reversed. I closed the window and whispered to the dark, "I don't want to see any more." Somewhere in the distance, the hum replied. When I told Lynn about what had been happening, she didn't believe me. She thought I needed airspace, a break from the endless data and sleepless nights. So we left, just the two of us. We drove north through pine forests, windows down, music low. The stars above us were bright, clean, almost comforting. For a while, I felt human again. We reached a lake just before dawn. The water was perfectly still, like a mirror to the sky. Lynn smiled, said it felt peaceful here. I wanted to believe her. But then the reflection changed. The stars in the water began to swirl, forming a red spiral, faint but unmistakable. Lynn didn't see it. She was humming to herself, eyes closed. I said nothing. I just watched as that spiral slowly widened, like an iris dilating. That night, we sat by the lake in silence. The forest was quiet, no insects, no wind. Then Lynn froze. She looked up and whispered, "What's that?" I followed her gaze. High above the treetops, a red point glowed in the sky. It wasn't Mars. It wasn't a plane. It pulsed, slow, steady, alive. My heart pounded. The air felt thick, metallic. Lynn reached for my hand. "It's watching us," she said. The light grew larger. The sky seemed to bend around it, the stars warping into spirals. I could hear that deep hum again, not in my ears, but in my bones. I tried to speak, but my voice broke apart. And in the static between my thoughts, I heard words forming. "Closer, closer. Look again." Lynn screamed. The light engulfed us. Then nothing. When I woke, the world was grey. The lake was gone, completely dry. The ground cracked like old skin. Lynn was beside me, breathing shallowly, her eyes open but unfocused. I tried to stand, but I coughed thick black fluid spilling from my mouth. When it dried on my hand, it left a fine metallic powder. We called the authorities, the military, the NOAA, even the EPA. They came, took samples, ran tests. No one could explain it. The report said It was a localized gravitational anomaly. For 12 seconds, Earth's gravity in that area had shifted drawn ever so slightly toward Jupiter. They said the data was corrupted. They said the instruments were wrong. But I know what I felt. For 12 seconds, the universe turned its head. It's been 7 years since that night. Lynn doesn't talk about it anymore. She says she doesn't dream, but I know that's not true. I still see it. Sometimes in reflections, sometimes in the quiet between thoughts. The red eye blinking slowly, patiently waiting. I stopped studying geology. I stopped looking at the sky. But a few nights ago, my son woke me crying. I went to check the baby monitor. The screen was dark, except for a small red circle glowing in the corner, faint pulsing. I turned the camera toward the window. Jupiter hung there brighter than I've ever seen it. For a moment, the red spot shifted, like it knew I was watching. And then, from the monitor's speaker, a voice whispered, "Your turn." I haven't looked at the sky since that night. I close the blinds. I keep the lights on. But sometimes, even through the walls, I can still feel it. The hum, the weight, the gaze. They told me it was madness. They told me Jupiter is just a planet. But if you ever find yourself outside at 3 a.m. and you notice it glowing brighter than usual, don't look. Don't reach for your phone. And whatever you do, don't point a telescope at it. Because once it sees you, you'll never look at the stars the same way again. If you listen closely tonight, you might hear it too. A low vibration somewhere between silence and thought. The sound of Jupiter breathing.